Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Harrisonville Board of Aldermen to order. Would you please stand and recite the pledge with us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Alderman Franklin.
Present.
Alderman Turner.
Present.
Alderman Milner.
Present.
Alderman Reese.
Present.
Alderman Mills.
Present.
Alderman Zaring.
Present.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Present.
Alderman Davidson.
Present.
Mayor Bowman.
Present. Thank you. We do have a quorum, and we have the Alderman Dorhoff, Zaring, and Davidson attending by Zoom this evening. So good evening, everyone. Celebratory matters. I have an acknowledgement that I want to share with you this evening. You know, in the days of YouTube, our meetings are broadcast far and wide, and I wanted to take the opportunity to give a very special wish. I have a constituent who's out in the audience. He happens to live next door to me. His name is Will Crawford, and he has come to join us this evening because he has made me aware of a young man, 7 years old, whose name is Miles Sorensen. Miles lives in Michigan, and Miles has leukemia. He's a brave little fighter, and one of the things that he's got coming up is his 7th birthday on April the 11th. And he has committed to trying to receive a birthday card from every state in the nation. And so Will and I have each sent a card. I sent a card on behalf of the Board of Aldermen and the city staff. And so I want to publicly, in front of you and on YouTube, say to Miles, happy birthday, young man. We send you greetings from the city of Harrisonville, from this city council, from city staff that you see sitting in front of me, and residents who couldn't be here with us, but many of whom are watching this on YouTube. So I want to thank you, Will, for making me aware of Miles' birthday, and I want to wish Miles a very happy birthday. Thank you very much, Board. Public participation. Mr. Ratliff, did you have any agenda request forms?
No, ma'am.
I think we haven't talked about this for a while. It's probably good just to advise the audience here in the room and watching on YouTube that the agenda request forms is a tool for you to speak to the board. If you have an issue or a concern, we'd like for you to contact City Clerk Barnett to request an agenda request form, and that will be processed, and then you can be added to our agenda. We like to operate that way because that gives staff an opportunity to address your concern the night that you come and speak to the board. So those agenda request forms are available online. You can download it off of there, or you can contact the city clerk and he'd be happy to help you. All right, approval of the minutes. I'd like to ask you this time to please silence your cell phones if you haven't already done so. So the first thing is the Board of Aldermen, the regular meeting from March the 7th. Those were printed in your packet. If there are no additions or corrections, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve. I second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Alderman Milner with a second from Alderman Franklin. All in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. Those minutes of the March 7th meeting stand approved. Moving on to the agenda items.
Council Bill 17, a resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville amending the adopted Economic Development Incentives Policy for the City of Harrisonville, Missouri.
Thank you. Mr. Clark.
Good evening, Mayor and Board.
Good evening.
This evening I'm presenting a request for consideration to amend the adopted Economic Development Incentives Policy. And in the staff report, I've expressed the items that I'm requesting to be considered for addition to the policy. And specifically, I was directed to maybe try to strengthen or enhance our economic development incentives policy for advanced technologies, if you will, those type of companies. So what I've done is to address a couple minor areas that aren't associated with that specifically is I did request for the historic preservation tax credit to be added. That's the state level. There is a federal level as well, but I can come back and have that added as well. But with our downtown square and all the development and the renovation and the investment that's taking place and occurring, it might be good to actually state this particular tool at a state level for folks' awareness in case they're interested in investing and renovating the downtown. The Beck Event Center actually used the tax credits, historic preservation tax credits. So it is a tool that can be used successfully, and we have a living, breathing operator that and property owner that took advantage of that tool. Then also, there's a program out there that I don't know that most of you are aware of. It's the New Markets Tax Credit Program. It's a federal program, and that's probably why you're not so aware of it. We do have eligibility area currently. Now, depending on what 2020 census comes out and tells us, we may or may not have that tool at our disposal. The boundaries may exist, but they may shrink or may expand. I just don't know yet. But until we get the 2020 census final results in, we'll take the map that I've included in here for your reference and anticipate that we can use this tool. And what it does is it allows for external investment into a project, and it's really designed for gap financing. So if you have a project that has a certain amount of funding and they need additional to actually make the full project come to fruition, the gap financing can be taken into consideration with this tool. And the way it works is the tax credit goes to the investors. It doesn't go to the business or the project. It goes to the investors. A lot of these investors are large banks. Bank of America, for example, has a tax liability. They can get a tax credit on this up to 39%. It's over 7 years, and I put a table in here to show you what it is. It's first 3 years out of the 7 is 5% tax credit, and the remaining 4 years is a 6% tax credit. Very beneficial to those with a heavy tax liability, if you will. Private individuals can also take advantage of this if they have the capacity and the tax liability to do so. So just be aware of those tools as being total additions. But the focus this evening is on disruptive technologies and advanced manufacturing. Those are the target industries and areas that we're really trying to get incentives for those that are interested in looking at Harrisonville for a possible operation. What I did was I did provide a definition on the definitions page for disruptive technologies. So if you'll direct your attention there for a moment, it means technology innovation that significantly alters the way industries, businesses, or consumers operate. It can alter entire industries and business models. So just keep that in mind when we're thinking of disruptive technologies. They're somewhat easy to identify. There's new ones emerging all the time. They're going to transform over the course of time, evolve, et cetera. And so I don't want to lock into these are the industries or the disruptive technologies specifically. If we'd like to, we can, on an annual basis, identify specific disruptive technologies just to make sure everybody's aware. So if there's some we don't want to participate in, we can opt out of those as well. So, but definition is there for your reference. And then the focus is on the Chapter 100 bond financing program. That's where we have flexibility. That's where we're really going to have larger investment projects, if you will. And so the bond financing, if you do not recall, it does require through its statutory structure that the city owns the real and personal property during the course of the bonds until they're repaid. We did use Chapter 100 bond financing for the Walmart distribution center. So that was for 20 years. We owned the property, the real estate, and the personal property, the machinery and equipment until 2020 when those bonds matured, were paid off, and then we reverted title back to Walmart. So we no longer own that property outside of maybe the lift station area down there. So it's a very effective tool. It's like I say for larger entities. Within our Chapter 100 bond financing, we are requiring that the beneficiary of the bond financing does purchase the bonds in their entirety. So they have to have some kind of capacity, et cetera. So I'll direct your attention to, I believe it is page 25. It's actually page 35 in the packet. And what I added in the Chapter 100 bond financing was just the last two items, item number 8 and item number 9. And what I'm suggesting for consideration or recommending for consideration is previously in the Chapter 100 bond financing, I tried to skew it for more advanced technologies, et cetera. And there's discretionary benefits, tax incentives, with increased investment or increased payroll, for example, those types of things. So on this, I specifically identified advanced manufacturing and disruptive technologies in those two paragraphs, so that when folks are reading this, if they know that they're defined in advanced manufacturing, which the state of Missouri typically defines that as automotive production and aerospace production, if you will. So if you've ever seen even the Ford Claycomo plant, they don't produce vehicles, they assemble them. But if you've ever seen that operation, I mean, glass, brakes, tires, engines, electronics, computer pieces, et cetera, just so much goes into that vehicle that it's really an advanced manufacturing where they're putting all those pieces together and whatnot. But then also the production side of it, if you've got a supplier that's producing, say, brake components or something, there might be some really advanced technology taking place there, et cetera. Then on the disruptive technologies, and so for advanced manufacturing, I actually did list a few items just for reference so folks have some concept. And if we do have any potential investors looking at us within these areas, it can be additive manufacturing, which is sometimes referred to as 3D printing. It can be advanced materials, composites, and alloys, robotics and automation, welding and machining with lasers. A lot of folks are familiar with the gas and the flame, but they do have laser welding these days. It's a little more advanced. Nanotechnology is really microscopic technology that they're doing in a lot of the biosciences, et cetera, dealing with molecules and those types of things, among some others. Then for the disruptive technologies, we're looking at blockchain technology, virtual and augmented reality, 3D printing, robotics, cybersecurity is a very big one, obviously. Drone technology, GPS and navigational systems, which is a very growth industry, especially in the marine sector, if you will, with all the ocean needs for maneuvering and logistics and identifying assets and locations of their property, et cetera. What I've expressed for consideration this evening in those two areas is I did structure that was adopted the sort of increased or elevated enhanced incentives discretionary based on the capital investment and the payroll and the job skills, et cetera. And incremental increases up to 75% for the incentive, which would be payments in lieu of tax of 25%. So that's where the taxing jurisdictions will get the benefit from the project. I've always recommended against 100%, and in rare cases said the board may consider going up to 80% for very special projects. In this case, if we're really trying to go after the advanced manufacturing and the disruptive technologies, I went ahead and said the board may consider up to 80% just as a rate of consideration. The baseline that we are going with on this is 50% to start with, and so it gives up to 80% tax incentive, and then that would allow for 20% payments in lieu of taxes. So that's kind of where we're at on this. And then for the actual resolution, the only part that I amended was I added the fourth paragraph in there, where it specifically states, whereas the city of Harrisonville desires to support, encourage, and attract high-impact projects, quality employers, and new technologies and innovations to their community, favorable consideration for incentives requests will be afforded to companies that engage in disruptive technologies or advanced manufacturing. So it just basically kind of lays it out and says, that's kind of what we're targeting, what we're interested in, and we'll give favorable consideration for. So if you have any questions or need clarification, I'm open to those now.
Do any of the members of the board, either here in chambers or on Zoom, have questions of Mr. Clark?
I do have one point I wanted to make. So if you're not familiar with blockchain technology and systems, that is the platform that deals in cryptocurrency. And it's not the cryptocurrency I'm suggesting, it's the actual blockchain platform. And to give you sort of a comparison, it's sort of like the Federal Reserve has their automated clearinghouse where they do wire transfers and all that kind of thing. They have a system and a platform that deals with the transactions. But the Federal Reserve is not the banks utilizing that tool per se. They're providing that support service for security reasons and whatnot. Blockchain, the blockchain technology is supposed to be really, really secure. It's a new disruptive technology, and our IT group might know more about it than I do, but they may expand themselves into other areas than just cryptocurrency in the end. The technology itself may expand and actually become more prevalent in just other daily transactions and activity because it's secure, it identifies transactions, and it kind of pinholes them to some degree here rather than having the free flow and easy access from outsiders, if you will. That's my understanding of it. But the blockchain is what I'm after, not the cryptocurrency per se.
That's exciting. I think we would love to have some of those technologies here available and have things that people couldn't get anywhere else except for coming to Harrisonville. So we want to open up the opportunities for that. Any questions, board? The alderman on Zoom, any questions? Seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Your Honor, but I can't remember if it's an ordinance or not.
It's just a resolution, Alderman.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Mills with a second from Alderman Turner. May I have roll call, please?
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Milner.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Zering.
Aye.
And Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Thank you. Council Bill 17 is approved and becomes Resolution R 2022-08. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Appreciate your work on that. Next item on the agenda is the presentation of the 2040 Harrisonville Comprehensive Plan. That would be our friends from Gould Evans. Good evening. Drew and Abby, good to have you back.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Sure.
You hear me okay? Oh, thank you. All right. Well, I think I'm driving this. There we
If I
go.
could just make an introduction. Board, you know, we've been working on this comprehensive plan now for several months, and we've done that. It's taken a time to do that, but we wanted to allow everyone to have input. So this group is going to tell you all the different groups that they've met with, soliciting feedback and input on what we want Harrisonville to look like over the next 20 years. You know, it's important because we've not had a comprehensive plan update since 2002, and a lot has changed in Harrisonville since that time. So this was real key for us to do, and having a comprehensive plan is an important thing because developers look at that. When somebody wants to develop a project here in Harrisonville, the first thing they want to know is, well, do they have a plan? And so now we have a plan. And so I want to thank Abby and Drew and the whole team from Gould Evans for all the many months and all the many meetings that you've held with us. And they're presenting the draft plan now to us. They've presented it to Planning and Zoning Commission last week. And there's one more public meeting coming up in April where the public will have one more opportunity to provide their feedback. So thank you for all the work that you've done. I feel like we know you now. You're like part of the family because we've all been together for so long. But
I'm sure you'll see us around.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of the overall team that's worked on this, Drew and I are here tonight. I'm Abby Kinney. I'm a planner with Gould Evans, and we have Drew Pearson, transportation planner with Wilson Company. We also have a number of other people who have been working in the background on this comprehensive plan. Chrissy Davis with Davis Preservation put together the historic preservation plan towards the beginning of this process, which was hugely helpful. Also, Rich Kaplan with RCA doing the economic development recommendations and analysis for this plan, and then ETC, who put together the citizen survey towards the beginning of this process as well. So there's a larger team that's been working on this, and we're excited to present an overview of the plan, and there's also a document that's available online at the website at planharrisonville.com. That's accessible to you all. It's accessible to members of the public and other stakeholders in town who are interested in seeing what this initial draft is. This chart here shows kind of an overview of where we're at in this process. And so just to reiterate that this is the first draft of the plan that really puts together this entire process. And so we want to make sure that we can get people's feedback ongoing through the adoption process and make sure that we have a plan that everybody feels really good about. There is a public workshop that's coming up in just a couple of weeks that will be a really good opportunity to get people's feedback on all the components of the plan and talk with members of the community again. And then the dates for the dates that have been set for the adoption process will be coming up, I believe, towards the end of April, beginning of May. And so we have a good amount of time for people to review the information that's been drafted and give any feedback or ask any questions if they have them to staff. So to give you guys kind of an overview of the different influences of this plan, I mentioned the citizen survey that took place towards the beginning of the process, the historic preservation plan that was hugely impactful. There was also a community profile that was produced as part of this process. That was basically all of the different data insights that we could get from census data to market data, real estate data. And we were able to kind of put that together to derive some initial insights and start that conversation with different stakeholders and community members. And through this process, we've had a technical committee and steering committee that we've met with 5 different times, and each of those meetings probably 2 or 3 hours, and having really good, robust conversations about some of the key issues and opportunities that are facing Harrisonville in the long run. We've had really great leadership by staff, leadership from the city, and then also have had really great engagement with different stakeholder groups in the community. We even met with high school students, which I think is hugely important because they are the future leaders of Harrisonville and the future business owners of Harrisonville. We've met with people who are very involved on the square. We've met with regional partners like Missouri Department of Transportation, Cass County, industry partners and major employers in town. So just a really broad range of people and getting a lot of good insight that helps us create draft recommendations and identify kind of larger goals that are really relevant to what the opportunities and what the desires are for the community. So just to give you guys kind of an overview of this visioning piece, this is really where we got the fundamental framework for all of the planning recommendations, the transportation, the land use plan for this comprehensive plan. And this was really all about kind of based on what we know about the community, the data that we've been able to analyze, the feedback we've got from people, what does the community strive for over the next 20 years? And so this section of the plan really has 4 major components, the first being the vision statement, the second being the guiding principles, which are really the 4 big themes of the plan that organizes a lot of other pieces of the plan into it. The goals, the targets are all kind of arranged by these guiding principles. And those principles are here. So the first idea of Harrisonville being a regional new industry town. So just like Jim was speaking about with economic development opportunities and major technological advancements and changes, really thinking about what does it mean to have a regional industry town for the 21st century, bringing really quality jobs and also jobs training and a clear path for workforce development for people who may be growing up in Harrisonville and would like to see a clear path for them to live in Harrisonville in the future, either as an employee or as an employer. And then leveraging the transportation assets that exist in the city. So you all know Harrisonville is well defined by its position in the region, the transportation assets that exist. And so really seeing ways to continue to leverage that, both the interstate highway system and also the rail and the airport. And thinking about really aligning all of those opportunities together for economic development and positioning Harrisonville as a really a capture of new business that's coming to the region. The second is downtown historic square revitalization. So a major component of that being historic preservation, which is why we were glad to have a historic preservation plan produced during this process, and they gave us really great recommendations that have been incorporated into this plan. Also thinking of ways to introduce new buildings, potentially mixed-use buildings, into areas of the downtown that are currently vacant, areas that may have parking lots or may just not be used for anything at all currently. So finding ways to integrate new buildings into the downtown as those opportunities arise. Also finding ways to promote local business, tourist destinations. So we have a lot of different things that have, goals that have been crafted around those kind of topics around historic square revitalization. The third is the idea of being a place to establish roots. So not just thinking of one age group or one type of person living in Harrisonville, but really finding ways to address issues of housing, what kinds of housing options are available, what kinds of healthcare services are available as well for all different ages. And then thinking of public amenities like parks. Are they serving people who are not only, maybe my age, but people who are children growing up in Harrisonville all the way through retirement, and making sure that there are the options that are available for all ages. And then the last one is growing with purpose, which is one that we heard a lot throughout this whole process, the idea of quality over quantity. So not just growing to grow and not really thinking about it, but being really intentional about how growth occurs, not just outward expansion, but also reinvestment in areas like the downtown or even Commercial Street, which we'll discuss tonight. And so this community frameworks piece was really about, once you kind of establish an idea of what the vision might be and those major topics that need to be addressed that are important for the next 20 years, how does that impact growth, and what does that mean on the ground? And so we worked with stakeholder groups, technical committees, the community on kind of mapping out these different types of growth. And the first thing that we did is we started to break down the types of growth that exist, recognizing that growth isn't just outward expansion on the edge of town. We might think about it that way, but even maintenance is a type of growth. When you replace your windows or put a new roof on your house, it's an incremental type of growth, but it adds up in like a whole neighborhood to be very, very impactful and very important. So we wanted to recognize that as a type of growth. It's more maintenance, but it's also very important. And there's also growth that is kind of more, more noticeable or more large scale, like revitalization, which is more about preserving the existing context, reinvesting in it, addition of new and kind of creative uses to an area, and then reimagination, which are areas of town where people have identified as, maybe needing reimagination. Maybe there's blighted buildings or buildings that are, really needing to be redeveloped or really reinvested in, uses that may not be compatible together. And so that was mapped out. And then the idea of expansion. So the type of growth that we all probably associate with the word growth, outward expansion areas that could be built in the future. And so this shows a map, and it's been included in the plan as really the documentation of those exercises. Like I said, we worked with community members on this. We worked with stakeholders and technical committee members as well to look at different areas of the community that are not only areas that, where maintenance is really a priority, but also could be reimagined or revitalized or even experience expansion growth as well. And so to complement that, after kind of identifying those different areas, we also talked about what that actually looks like on the ground. What does that mean for land use? What does it mean for transportation improvements, public projects? And by the way, this is a very detailed map, so I don't expect you to see all the detail that's on it. It is available on the website at planharrisonville.com, and you can see all of the different ideas that were documented by various different groups. And so we documented that because what that allowed us to do is to look at what the existing land use contexts in the city are, the different places that exist, and then translate that into the future land use map for the comprehensive plan. So not only thinking about what kind of growth might be prioritized, but what kinds of improvements ought to be prioritized in different areas, both in investment by development and also capital and public investments that are desired. Oh, okay. There we go. So these are those different place types that have been identified. And so really taking all of the existing places that currently exist in the community and providing some detail about what kinds of things should be prioritized looking forward. So, for example, for the traditional neighborhood, which is the downtown area, the downtown neighborhoods that are anchored by the old grid of the city, that those are areas where, for example, reinvestment in sewer systems and reinvestment in sidewalks have been prioritized. Suburban neighborhoods, really focusing on opportunities to provide housing to people, and especially thinking about prioritizing areas to the north where there's some significant public investments. You have the community center, which you should be very proud of, and also the parks that are up there that really anchor that area as a prime residential neighborhood area in the future. We have a lot of different documented priorities that we've heard that have been documented in each of these topics, all the way to employment areas. So heavy meaning heavy manufacturing, industrial areas, and so documenting the area where there could be a future industrial district in the city, and that's really a desire to be able to host future employers and even existing employers who would be interested in that as well.
Thank you, Abby. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Drew with Wilson and Company. And so, just like with the land use, how the future land use map will help inform future decisions on land use in the community based on this process, based on finding those synergistic, recipes for success for Harrisonville. So too does a future transportation network help to guide transportation investments and help understand what facilities, what processes need to be analyzed and studied to help get funding, to help create efficient, safe intersections. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Forgot we're online. Thanks, Jeremy. All right. Hey guys. Again, so just like the transportation, or just like the land use, the future land use helps to inform those decisions. So does the transportation network. And so, in meeting with MoDOT, various utility partners, going through a lot of community discussions, really started to identify specific key projects which will help facilitate the plan of this of the future of Harrisonville, and to understand how to best leverage regional investments. And so some of the existing regional investments that are going on are the diverging diamond occurring right there at 7 Highway. And so that plays into a lot of the industrial district. We also have, again, like this approach of maintain, revitalize, and expand. We've identified a arterial and a collector network on the outside of the city to help increase the ability for traffic, for residents to get around, for emergency services and vehicles to access different parts of the city. And the goal of that is to take some of that strain off the existing network and to help support the future growth and vision. And one of the other, while I'm on this slide, just point out, to the north of Harrisonville, there really isn't currently a way to get a lot of traffic over the railway and to access a lot of that developable property. And so thinking about how vehicles can pass over that, I think, a quiet zone crossing is an example of where coordination with the rail can help to create a benefit so that you don't have loud trains in a residential area, and so forth. Additionally, one of the other elements through this plan that's come up quite a bit is the quality of life elements. And so leveraging that 2004 Bike Ped Master Plan to help increase the allure a lot of these residential properties by creating those connections to get people to have recreational trips and business trips to local establishments. So just drilling in a bit more on these. When we're talking the downtown area, there really is an opportunity to improve the circulation patterns. This will help with wayfinding, helps with business frontages, and it'll help with finding parking. And so there's a couple of opportunities to potentially purchase right-of-way that could create a two-way street, which would improve circulation to create looping patterns. And then also thinking about how to minimize the amount of one-way streets or alleyway streets. There's a lot of these historical patterns of the downtown grid which might be able to be improved. Additionally, one thing that's super important for creating a welcoming pedestrian walkable environment is having street trees, adequate sidewalks, and additionally too, one of the items we kind of identified as a reimagine would be Independence Street through downtown. As you increase the amount of traffic that you're bringing into the downtown area, ensuring that there's traffic calming measures to help make sure that traffic isn't speeding through. So that was one of the items for downtown. And then moving on to the central commercial corridor. So this area was identified in the future land use as being a revitalized area, an area where there's a lot of existing commercial. However, it's still very auto-oriented, and there's a lot of opportunity to create some community mixed-use properties. There already is some residential that's kind of just south of Mechanic Street. So thinking about these opportunities to develop some of these parts of land and reimagine what Commercial Street could be. Again, one of the items that's come up through this is multimodal improvements and thinking about access in the region. And while I'm talking about multimodal, which is bike and pedestrian, there's just to the west of Commercial and Mechanic Street, right where you see that pink dot, there's an existing culvert underpass to underneath 4971 Highway. So this is currently like the gateway to access the Frisco Rail Corridor, which runs up into Kansas City, which has been identified by regional planning agencies as a Metro Green corridor, a rail-to-trail corridor, if you will. And so there's opportunities there for future expansion and connecting into regional facilities and for things like trail-oriented development. All right, and then scooting on to the industrial district. So
just a few items in addition to that. So we took a specific look at those three different areas, those focus areas that he just went through. And in addition to that, we provided kind of an overview of different economic development tools that might be available to the city and where they might apply for different uses. So the types of tools that are available to an industrial area might be a little bit different than tools that may be appropriate or desired for the historic downtown square. And so we provided some definitions of those different types of tools that are available and some ways that those might be leveraged by stakeholders in order to achieve some of the goals that people have for these different areas. And then I don't expect you to be able to read this either, but this is just to show you that we have 6 pages that really, at the end of the plan, that it's a matrix that really provides all of the detail for people like me who like tables to be able to kind of track that information. And then it also identifies different points of leadership. And that is important because while the city is potentially the leader in some of these things, and as well as a facilitator of some of these actions that can be taken, there's also a lot of different stakeholder groups that might take a leadership role in this, and they've certainly taken leadership roles throughout this process as well. And so we want to recognize that for places, for example, like the downtown square, there's groups of people who are engaged that may take on some of these things that have been identified as opportunities in the plan. And so we want to make sure that we're recognizing these different alignments of leadership where it's going to be important to work together in order to accomplish some of these goals. And then at the very end of the plan, we've put together kind of as an appendix, an additional resource guide. So this provides all of the relevant documents to this process by the City of Harrisonville, as well as different resources that might be relevant to Harrisonville. That's been produced by the Mid-America Regional Council, and then also economic development tools and those resources, both at the state level and also any documentation that MoDOT has provided as well, or even Missouri Main Street connection has been included. And then just different design guidelines that are relevant to these conversations that we've discussed over the past 9 months. We wanted to make sure that this plan is not only for use by the city, but also by different stakeholder groups if they want to. We'll be making updates and revisions to the document based on feedback that we get. We want to make sure that this is a document that Harrisonville feels really great about because it's your plan, and so we're just really excited to have the opportunity to get to know you all and get to work with this on you. So thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Abby or Drew? Anyone in the council chambers or on the Zoom?
I like the looks
Mr.
of it.
Clark?
It's very nice.
I do not have a question for Abby or Drew, but I did want to share with the board, in case you're not familiar or aware of a comprehensive plan, how to utilize it, how to implement it, make it applicable, if you will. This is not a document or a process just for this point in time. This is to be a living document. In 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, I'm hoping this document doesn't look the same as once it's adopted, because things will change, evolve, et cetera. And on an annual basis, it's in our codes that the Planning and Zoning Commission, at a minimum, on an annual basis, review the comprehensive master plan that's been adopted, make recommendations to the board for any changes or updates that are appropriate and necessary. It's also incumbent upon the board to initiate any observations they make that they think might be of consideration to update and or edit and modify the document for our benefit. The more timely and current it is, the more effective and applicable it's going to be to not only the community but also to prospective investors. We do get calls asking to see the comprehensive plan, and it's better if we hand them a current document than one that's 20 years old. Even currently, just electric vehicles. There's things in our codes that aren't being addressed just by technology and things that are evolving, if you will, and we need to somehow identify those things. How do we want to actually use land in the future? I've mentioned rail service quite a few times, and if you look to the north, rail doesn't just run on the southwest part of the community. It runs up to the northeast. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to identify some potential light industrial uses up there, buffering with the parks, et cetera, and then maybe with some other type of residential, so that the industrial employers aren't really adjacent to residential that's sort of designed for the northeast part of the community. So just things to start looking at, and how do we incorporate that east-west flow and connection to I-49 from the residential subdivisions, et cetera, is a challenge for us at the moment. Need to look at things like, the Welborn property. That's a lot of acreage. Do we really want all single family there? Or is there some better mixed-use concepts, or maybe some more commercial, or just some things we need to look at as we're adopting this, and then thinking through how do we want to proceed forward to develop the community. So it will be a living document, hopefully.
Thank you for that clarification. I think Mr. Ratliff has a comment also.
Yes, also, and kind of piggyback with Jim, so basically when this comes to you all again and you end up approving it, staff will be working with the Gould Evans team to bring back ordinances that will be based upon this plan for updating different ordinances, such as transportation that Drew's talked to you all about tonight. Different, parking is an issue in the community, and based on the transportation plan that he has put in here, essentially we would then start looking at the ordinance on what streets you can park on in Harrisonville, and that would be based upon width size to is it one car, is it two cars, or is it no cars because there's not the width for passing, because we get a lot of complaints from residents about being able to pass, especially from the buses that are unable to get through because of some of these issues. Then additionally, the no parking and some of the signage that would be needed for that. So, and another component is the one-ways and all the different one-ways that he's also been looking at through this plan. So that'll be from this plan. So it's not just adopting this plan. Another component is the zoning, and they'll be working with us on the zoning based on this plan. In my opinion, we've got too many of them, and they need to be a little more condensed and a little more realistic. And it makes it a lot easier even for developers if they know what the rules are, instead of there's this rule and then there's curveball rule over here. So we need to make sure that we have everything spelled out from that. So this once you all approve this, then there's a whole set of additional things that we have to do with them to identify. I know tomorrow they're meeting with some of the staff just to even start having those beginning discussions about what will be affected through our ordinances and what needs to be looked at and what needs to be updated based upon the plan. So there'll be some long-term, and then there's some immediate type of effects. Now, most residents that are living in their home and we update these codes, they won't really even notice anything other than they'll notice as we develop and development comes in, the nice type of development that'll be coming in as a result of that. But I just want to make sure you're all clear that once you adopt this plan, this becomes our direction as staff, and to work with them to get these type of things back to you all.
Okay. Yes, Drew.
No, I wanted to clarify just a point. I think I failed to make a point in regards to transportation, and Mr. Clark reminded me when he mentioned about how the comprehensive plan helps developers understand, the vision of a community. And so just wanted to highlight the idea of these transportation projects that are suggested in this plan, taking the time to study and understand those effects will help unlock the federal and state dollars. And so without that study, without showing that interest from the city side, there's really not a good way to access that money. And there's a lot of money coming out. So I just wanted to make sure that point was known, because currently there's a lot to maintain, in Harrisonville. And being able to leverage all those dollars you can will really help facilitate all the vision in this plan. So I just wanted to make sure that was heard. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you again for a job well done. We look forward to those next two meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Uh-huh. It's nice to finally have a plan. All right, we'll move on then to Alderman and committee reports. Alderman Reese?
Well, I'm a little overwhelmed with all this. I think that when you have grown up from being a little girl in a city like this, a little boy, and we've gone from every business in town being on the square, and I'm seeing some smiles around, not too many, but a couple here. That when we get into something this detailed and large, for a better word, it's a little overwhelming to a lot of us, and we have a lot of questions about things that are going on, detailed questions, but it's exciting to sit back and see these things develop. And so kudos to all who are arranging it and are following it and having patience with those of us that have lots of questions. Thank you.
Alderman Franklin.
Okay, I wanted to talk about what's going on out at the park. You all probably got the notice on Facebook regarding next, on the 28th, that they will be shutting down Streets Ash and going in and controlling the traffic. They will be working on, I believe they have got the upper dam, and that is all worked out, but they will be working on the silt and taking that out as much as they can with the machinery. And they will be using a lot of dump trucks that will be coming in and out of the park, so there is the issue about the parking there. The
Question,
pool,
Before you get any further, will the dog park be closed as well?
I believe.
Okay, we need to
Do
be
we
sure
know?
and get that out, because there's a lot of people that go out there.
That's true.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for bringing that up. Has anyone said?
If you park you can access the pool parking lot and
Okay.
and use the Monday Mile Trail to access the dog park. We just cannot. We're trying to keep as much traffic out of the park with the big machinery moving from our Barrow site to our Lake Luna, and so the tennis team for the high school is another organization that we're working with, because they do have to have practice
Yeah,
on our tennis
the
courts, but
practices.
they're going to be parking on in our pool parking lot and then walking to the tennis courts. So if people do want to access the dog park, they can park on the pool parking lot and then access the Monday Mile Trail to
I
get
just
to the
wondered,
dog park.
what would be your preference? I mean, would you prefer that we encourage them to just wait for a few days, or?
I would encourage everyone to wait a few days. Yeah. It's better that way. Do I think that will happen? No. But
Is there any way?
we're encouraging them just to stay out until everything's done and completed, yeah.
It's about safety.
Exactly.
We don't want anybody to get hurt.
Is there any way you could
There was
put
a
like a
big,
post
there was a
out
big
for that?
discussion on the staff level of what was
Oh,
best
okay.
with the contractors, and there's just a huge concern with that many trucks and that much equipment running back and forth, that someone could get hurt. And so we just made the decision, it's probably best to close it, get it done, and make sure that nobody gets hurt that way. Because, as you know, with those big type of machinery, they can't see always when they're backing up, and it could be, a disaster. So that was our main focus, is just try to get it done and make sure nobody gets hurt.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say that all the pouring has been completed on the pool, and they are starting on the deck, working on that. We got word from the Kiwanis Club that they are celebrating their 100th anniversary, and they want to do quite a bit of work out at the park, and they want to put in some things for the kiddos. And they are waiting for a grant right now to facilitate that. But they've got a Yelp, is what it's called, I believe. There's 2 of them. It's a virtual type game for kiddos that Grant would be able to control from his computer in his office. They're also talking about a walk and a zip line feature for the kids. And so hopefully we will get some of that into works. And Dale and I took advantage of being in the first cornhole tournament at the community center. And we won by default in a way. I had to back out, but Dale and Kim Troby ended up finishing. But there were like 6-7 teams maybe or something like that out there. Everybody had a great time. Everybody got along. We had a lot of fun, so it was a good time. So enjoyed that. So hopefully we'll have more of those to come. So anyway, that's it.
I saw you, and I mean, your form was like you've played cornhole before.
Well, I was trying hard to impress people because everybody else out there looked like pros, and I'm going, oh my God. But it was fun.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just want to thank everybody for coming out about a week and a half ago to stop the bleed. We had a great, informative meeting and learned a lot. And look forward to having the next one. Currently working on trying to schedule the same instructor to do a CPR class for us. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be able to schedule that. And that's all I've got.
Excellent, thank you. Alderman Zaring.
Yeah, good evening. Just wanted to mention again, comprehensive plan like you did, Madam Mayor, that it's good to be to this point to where we're seeing a long-term plan. I know when I first came on, that was something I was hoping to see, and I think we weren't close to being there yet. And it's looking like now we're going to have a pretty good long-term plan and a lot of information. A lot of work's gone into that, so appreciate everybody that's done that.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Davidson?
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Milner?
I just wanted to touch, I'm glad you guys sent out the email about the park. I had a conversation with a resident on Sunday of last week. And they were very concerned about the people that are choosing to bypass the roadblocks and the please don't, park here and do this. And, he was a little bit panicked because there was a mom pushing a stroller with a little 2 or 3 year old walking just right down where all the trucks and stuff were going. And he's like, we just, as a city, I feel like we need to do something to protect them because they're choosing maybe not to protect themselves as well as maybe they should. So he was, when I got that email, he was very pleased to see that happen because he was watching it take place and he was just beside himself. So I think that's a real good call. That's pretty much all I got.
Daniel, is that post pinned on our Facebook page where it'll be seen?
So it's not currently pinned on ours. We are going to pin it on the Parks page.
Perfect.
Ours is currently got the new videos that we've got up there. It's kind of an introduction, but we can talk about making a change if we need to.
Perfect. No, I think as long as it's pinned on one of our Facebook pages,
Yep.
that's fine. Having something pinned on the Facebook page means it always stays up on the top. So that way people will be able to see it, all through this park closure. So thank you, Daniel. Anything else, Alderman?
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Turner.
Nothing.
Okay. Alderman Mills.
I think it's been covered. Yeah, it's excellent, yes.
Okay.
Safety first.
Absolutely. All right. Report from the city administrator, Mr. Ratliff.
Yes, ma'am. As was stated earlier, April 6th will be the open house. That was rescheduled. Also, the Board of Aldermen retreat, April the 13th, 5 p.m. for the city tour, and then 6 p.m. session. All will be out at the community center. We'll meet there at 5 o'clock and then be back there at 6 o'clock. RFPs, the RFP came in under budget for the Kenworth boom truck. So discussions are among staff to do an RFP for a type of enclosure for several of our items, including this, to keep the weather off of it, so that way it would be able to last longer and not have as much trouble. The asphalt curb gutter program is out for bid and will be till the 31st. The Muddy Creek regional detention, we had 5 bids ranging from $609,000 to $1,277,000. As you all recall, we had put in there around $700,000, so we had some bids under for that. And so it appears that the notice to award is Dirk's Heavy Contractors out of Baldwin, Missouri. And so staff is currently reviewing references and ensuring everything checks out with them. And if so, they're planning to move forward fairly quickly. They're ready and the city's ready. So we should be seeing some quick access on that and a quick turnaround. The city park that was talked about, additionally, there's some hydro seeding that they're getting ready to do, as well as working with the Grand River Water Alliance. Some of you know probably Doris and that group, and they do a great job in working with them on some native plants out there in that area. And then additionally with the Lake Luna, part of what they're doing, we didn't really talk about that. They're using a lot of their equipment to reach out and grab a lot of that silt and take that out before we have a discussion about the hydro run through there. Because if you can get it mostly with these backhoes, it'd be a lot cheaper when we have to dredge it to get out of that all that out of there. Additionally, Ted's had some discussions about there's two kind of catch ponds between the city lake and Lake Luna, and the current creek that runs to the north that ends up bringing all the silt into Lake Luna. We're trying to see if we can reroute it to those catch ponds, and that way the silt would go into those before they go into Lake Luna, and it would help with some of that out there. Ted said, he thinks we can do it, but I told him, I don't know if water will go uphill, but you can try on that to see if it would be great if we can make that possible. The South Service Area Sanitary Sewer Project, one of the things I'd like to point out is we had dismissed the prior engineer based on cost and the type of cost they had brought in, and the RFPs came back, and the engineering firm that we're in discussions with now is about 55% lower than their original cost. And so it was a good decision to go ahead and to make that switch to make sure that we're getting the most effective dollar for that project. The Kohler Lawn and Outdoor is donating labor for the Marla work. Allen Fountain Lighting, I don't know if you all seen the fountain there at the park. One of the things that will be in that is a different type of lighting, LED lighting. So, Red Fridays or Royals games or cancer awareness, you can change the colors of the water in that fountain. And Grant and I have had a discussion. A lot of people don't realize that essentially that fountain, and by the time it's said and done, is over $175,000 project of a fountain that we got for $35,000. So it's a huge cost savings, and it's a really nice fountain that should last a long time. Additionally, there will be a placard up on that top side with a light to it. That'll probably be the city's logo. Daniel's in the midst of working on that with a company to come to you all here in the near future about a logo for the city. And once that is completed, then we will bring that to be placed in that area. But we didn't want to do it and then take it down and put something up different. But we really thank Kohler Lawn and Outdoor for donating the labor to that project. Staff has been meeting and working with Energy Curve Technology that's going into the prior Heritage Tractor location. I don't know if you've all been out there lately in the nice facility that it's become in that area. And so that will bring several additional jobs to the community, and possibly more as they continue to branch out. Another thing that I was told that I can mention is that the old Hardys will be taken down, and MedWise urgent care will be located in that area. So we will have an urgent care here in our community to utilize. And so the plan is next that they will demo the old Hardys and build a new facility there at that location. So that will be a nice amenity to the community that we don't have, as well as a nice building that would be located there and removing an older building. Scooter's Coffee Shop had their final inspection. They're planning on opening at the end of this month, as well as headquarters on the square. We'll have a target date for the 22nd to be ready with minor things and completing the new storefront. So they plan to be open at the end of this month, and they've already started booking different type of activities. I know the chamber's going to have their what do they call it?
Ribbon cutting.
The down Kentucky Derby.
Oh, the Kentucky Derby.
The Kentucky Derby there at that location next month. So they've already booked that location for that. And then by your next meeting, we'll have a new community development director. Jim, don't start jumping and dancing. He's really looking forward to her coming. Christina Stanton will be starting on April the 4th. She comes with a great background. She was actually in Lee Summit for 13 years and then has been in Colorado for the past 4 and is coming back to this area. And so she'll be starting April the 4th here in Harrisonville. With that, Madam Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you. You have the February 2022 Municipal Court Report in your packet. Questions from the media. Dennis, I believe you're on the Zoom with us.
Yes, I have no questions. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Chief Hofer, can I put you on the spot just a second, please? Could you step to the microphone? Mr. Ratliff talked about the Marler-Wirt Park and the renovations and the huge amount of community involvement and generosity that has taken place to get us to the point where we are. And I want you all to know, and I'd like for you to hear from Chief Hofer about the plans for the April 21st event with the families of Officer Marler and Officer Wirt and Mr. Allen. And I'd ask you to calendar that and please join us. So, Chief, would you just kind of give us a little overview about that event? And
Sure. There has been a tremendous amount of work done at the park down there, a lot through volunteer, and I commend the Parks Department for what they've done and taking it over and above what my expectations were. It's just going to be a beautiful attraction, kind of the gateway to the square. April 21st will mark 50 years since Marler, Wirt, and Orville Allen, a citizen, were shot and killed up on the Harrisonville Square. Darlene Hardy, I actually got a text from her while we were in this meeting, and she is coming back. That would be Marler's widow, along with his son Nathan and his wife Jennifer from Florida. They will be here. I've been in contact with the Wirt brothers. They are unable to attend. They both, one of them lives on the East Coast and one in Arizona. It's just a lot of travel for them at this time of year. And then the Orville Allen family, you're mostly familiar with Randy Jones. That would be Orville Allen's grandson. And I've been working with Randy, and they plan to attend. Orville Allen's had a couple daughters and a son, and they plan on attending as well. So that evening, we are going to rededicate the park. Due to the traffic and being 5 o'clock that evening, it's going to be quite loud, so we're going to just do the rededication. Then we're going to move to the Beck Event Center. For the rest of the evening, we'll have some light snacks, but we'll also hand out our annual Marler-Wirt Sumner, another officer that was killed in the line of duty. We'll give away those scholarships that night. We got some flags that have been donated by Representative Hafner that have flown over the state capitol for the families, as well as some proclamations signed by the House leader. So come together, meet these people, a lot of memories. That's kind of what we're planning for that evening.
excellent. Anybody have questions for the chief? I see them all with their phones out there, all putting it on their calendars. Thank you, Chief. And that is all I have for this evening. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
A motion from Alderman Turner with a second from Alderman Franklin. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. We'll take about 2 minutes and come back